Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Travel with Terri podcast, featuring Terri Guthrie, a Dallas, Texas-based travel journalist who loves to talk about luxury family vacations, regional food and culture, national parks, historic attractions, and so much more. So just as we promised last week when we talked about Ron Guthrie's hair transplant adventures in Turkey, we are talking about Istanbul today, which was all part of the same trip that Terri took. So today we're going to go to Istanbul, which I believe is like in the middle of two continents, which is really cool. And it just seems like Turkey and Istanbul is taking the world by tourism storm. Is that true? Terri, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, thank you, Lisa. Yes. Istanbul is just the most magical city, and people are finding out about it. It's a hidden gem, but has definitely been discovered, and it's one of the top tourist destinations in the entire world.
Wow. So take that. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
why not be one of the top, right? And so I think a lot of it's got to be like the history of it, and then also just the architecture and just the beauty of the water and all of that too, right?
Right, yes. Of course, the landscape is gorgeous. It's a beautiful country, and Istanbul is just quite a lovely city that just offers so much from just ancient civilization. I mean, the history there goes back to a lot of, stuff AD. That's just mind-boggling, but yet it's a very, very modern city as well. I mean, it has 13 million people in it. It's big. It's not the capital. Yeah. So it's a huge city, but it's most interesting because it's the only city in the world that straddles two continents, Asia
Mm.
and Europe. And the city is on both sides in both continents. And I think that makes it really fascinating.
I do too. I do. I mean, and you did that beautiful photo shoot as well that we've got to talk about, right? Because
Yes.
it was epic. I mean, did you feel like, a princess doing that? I mean, it's kind of when you talk about magical, when I was looking at those photos, I mean, it's just that to me was kind of like, wow, we dreamed of that as little girls, you know?
Right. I know. I saw that somewhere and I was so fascinated with, especially with those dresses that they provide. So my birthday was coming up. And so Ron actually bought me this photo shoot for my birthday. And I will have to say it may be one of the most memorable birthday presents I've ever had. I really enjoyed it. Told them when we got there, I said, "I'm probably one of your oldest people you've ever had for this." And they're like, "Oh, no, not at all." Truly. And then I did see women of all ages there, but it was so spectacular. It's just in this very, very historic area of
Mm,
Istanbul overlooking the Bosphorus Strait. And
mm.
so I was on the European side, but in the background, you can see Asia. And, when I first got there, it was a lot of fun. They let me pick my dress, and I had a feeling I was gonna get to, pick and select my dress, but I did not expect such a selection. They must have had 100. I was expecting, like, 8 or 10 dresses or something to choose from, but yeah, it was a lot. So I finally decided on one, and then you have someone that helps you get dressed. And then probably one of the most dangerous parts is the building that we were in is really tall and narrow, and this dress is massive. I mean, I've never seen a
Mm.
wedding dress that has a train on it like this dress did, and so I had to go down a spiral staircase once
Oh,
I had that dress on to get to this rooftop area. That was tricky, but I had this assistant, and she held the whole back of the dress for me as we made our way down the spiral staircase. I still can't believe I did that. That was a little challenging, no joke. But, once we got to the rooftop, it was like a whole photo crew out there, and I did not know what to expect. So there was the photographer that gave great direction in what he was wanting me to do, and then there were some people on either side that held my dress, the train of it, and kind of would shake it to make it kind of flow, have the kind of wave look. And then over on the side was a man that was feeding the birds. That's why you see so many seagulls in the picture, is that he's over behind us feeding the birds and attracting them to the photo shoot.
wow. Wow. So they've got it down just like the hair transplants. I love this. Ron
Yes.
gets like regenerated hair. That's kind of how I look at it. And it's like, it's a true transplant. You know,
Right.
I'm still like, that was such an incredible story. And I know people are, I know he's helping a whole bunch of people by, talking about that. And then here you are with
I
this,
think so.
fairy tale, photo shoot. It's amazing, but in a place that is just so historic and culturally rich as well, because I know that you went to some of the, the amazing buildings. One of them is the Blue Mosque, which to me, I love mosques and synagogues and churches
Yeah.
and cathedrals. I love places of worship, and it doesn't have to be my religion to go in there. You know what I mean? I love to
Right.
learn, but there's just, when you see these historic places of worship, I don't know, there's something very special about the care and the design of it. They often, the architects always look at the direction of where the building is, where the light is coming in, and things like that. And so going into these places just kind of remind us to slow down, I think, and think about those little things in life that really are bigger.
Right. And I can tell you from our travels, wherever we go, we always try and visit some churches in that community or city or country because they do tell so much about the people and the culture of that area. Also, seeing a church is just such a beautiful thing to see, and just the architecture of them. They all tell a great story, but also it's free.
Mm,
And it's just something to realize. Honestly, I didn't know that you could visit mosque the way you can, but you absolutely
mhm,
can. Of course, they just ask you to be very reverent about people that may be in there worshiping, but many of them that are really big, like the Blue Mosque you mentioned, I think that's the number one tourist destination in Istanbul. So you would have to be kind of like in a little tour group. And so
mhm.
it has to be very organized because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people trying to get in there. So they take you in little sections and little tour groups. But just know that any of the mosque you go in, you always have to have your head covered. The women do. That's just, their custom and tradition. And then if you're in any area where they're actually praying, you have to remove your shoes. But they give you great
Mhm.
instructions and guidance, and it's not intimidating. And it's just a fascinating experience, actually. Boy, does Turkey, they have so many mosques. They're just dotted around the landscape of the city, and you can
Mm.
just see them everywhere. They're really beautiful. And of course, they have the really ancient one called Hagia Sophia. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, yeah. And so this is like, yeah, from like the 500s. It's so
I
say
talking.
that you like try and look that genealogy up online. Wow.
And
Wow.
it was actually built originally as a Catholic church, and that's what it was for like 1,000 years. And yeah, and then, now it's a working mosque, but it
Wow.
is so ancient and is just architectural feat, especially for that time period. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I asked Ron today, I said, "What is your biggest takeaway from Istanbul?" And he said, it'd have to be the architecture, the things that they built back, in the 500s. And, they didn't have machinery. They didn't have the tools that we have today. And the things are still standing and they're beautiful and just a work of art and ingenuity, and they're marvel, actually. And so Hagia Sophia also is like the Blue Mosque. They're actually very close to each other, and so you can see both of those in the same afternoon. But it is definitely one to see. I think my it was my personal favorite. I really enjoyed seeing it just because it's so old and it has a lot of mosaic pictures and stuff in it that are from the Catholic era.
So you've got Catholic and Muslim belief all in the same building, which is fascinating, right? That it's everyone's open to make that happen. So I think
Right, and
that's
Hagia
incredible.
Sophia shows that. Yeah, you have all this stuff that you'll see, kinda like in Arabic and, for the Muslim beliefs, and then
Hmm.
they have all the Catholic stuff in there too. So it's got both. It represents, all of its history, and they have really embraced that and are showing the world, which I love.
Now, what about this Basilica cistern? So this is like in an underground, right? So tell us about that, because that's another, I mean, that's a little different when you can actually see a reservoir of water underground.
Right. It was just the most wonderful surprise because I was telling someone that I have a problem when I travel that I'm trying to get over, and it's with words that don't mean anything to me or that may not sound attractive to me, like cistern.
Hmm.
This does not
Right.
grab my attention,
And
you know?
neither
I,
does the word bucolic. Bucolic is to me one of the worst words in the world because it sounds like you're sick. Like something looks bad is sick. The word colic. And then we think bucolic is beautiful. No, it's like beautiful colic. No, colic is not a beautiful thing. Sorry, I'm with you.
I know, and I have to, it is a mental thing with me. And I'm so glad that this was suggested to us because this was one of the highlights for me. And there again, it's all in walking distance from Hagia Sophia, Blue Dome Mosque. It's all kind of in the same area. So this is a fun day event here. But it's called the Basilica Cistern, and it's Istanbul's largest surviving um, cistern that's one of the like most unique historical sites there. So it was constructed in the year 532. You can believe it.
Whoa.
And it's just sprawling. It is a sprawling water reservoir that is roughly about the size of two football fields. And the purpose of it was to supply the water to the great palace of Constantinople. And so it was a large palace that served as the main resident for the local empires for centuries. Now, it's not in use anymore, and it is a tourist attraction, so to speak, but it's well worth it. It has over 300 of these beautiful big columns, and you walk through it. It's dark. You go down below the street
Hmm.
level. There's no windows, so it's dark, but the way they have the pathway through all of these enormous columns and the water and then the way they have it illuminated is just very mysterious but beautiful. I think they may be some of my most beautiful photographs. I loved this place. It was something I've never ever seen before. And I don't think there's probably anything quite like it in the world. Definitely, I would say put the cistern on your list and don't let the name of it deter you.
Sister, and I know that's, that is another one. Now, what about this palace that you get to pronounce?
Yes.
The
Gosh, and I'm
Dolma
probably gonna
Bachi?
butcher it, but it's
Bachki?
Dama Damabachi Palace. Damabachi, I believe is correct, and I could be butchering it. But this is one of many, many palaces in Istanbul. This is the only one that I visited, and if I get to go back sometimes, there's others I'd like to visit. But I was very happy with this one. I think it's got to be one of the most beautiful and probably one of the largest ones. But it's just jaw-dropping, very, very impressive, and has quite the historical importance there. This is where the President Ataturk died. But it was built in the 19th century, and it was used by the final Ottoman sultans as their primary
Mm.
residence and administrative seat. And the interior and the exterior showcase like a mix of European and Ottoman design that can only be found at this global crossroads. Was what's the word I want to use? It just exquisite, opulent, and
Mm.
it went on and on and on. I loved it though. I've been in a lot of palaces. Actually, Lisa, that might be a fun podcast sometimes because I love
Yeah.
palaces, and this is one for the record books for sure. And what makes this one really stand out to be unique is that it's right on the banks of the Bosphorus Strait, which was just a beautiful setting, but it has its own separate building that was for the harem. And I was like, I just
Oh.
couldn't believe it. But let me tell you, the harem lived well, lived very well in quite luxurious settings. And so I can now say that I've been to the home of a harem, and it was quite fascinating to say the least.
I bet. I bet. This is, well, it's what was back in the day. I mean, it's a little different than Amsterdam's red light district, isn't it? That, we were talking about that on your
Oh yeah,
handlebar highlights episodes, you
this
know.
is a far cry from the red light.
Yeah.
Red light.
I know. This is like a whole other journey, right? So did you go cycling in Turkey? I have to ask that after, we're
That's a
talking.
good question. No, I didn't. No,
Well, now you have to go
we
back.
didn't. In fact, I don't even really remember seeing any bicycles there. I'm sure there probably are somewhere, but nope, did not do that
Sure.
there. Did not even see it.
Yet, yeah, yet, because you never know, right?
Right.
So you're doing all these grand things, and so like opulence, even your photo shoot, opulent, right? But
Yeah.
then talking about the bazaar, isn't this the Grand Bazaar like one of the biggest bazaars in the world? And I think that's what we think of when we think of Istanbul and places like, Morocco. You think of these just
Right.
amazing bazaars that you want to just take all your money and put it in there and come back
Oh
with all
my
these
gosh.
exotic things, right? It's dangerous.
This is a fun day event.
An
You will
event.
want to spend the day there, I promise. Is the Istanbul Grand Bazaar is the biggest old covered bazaar in the world with over 3,000 shops. And I don't know off the top of my head the area that it covers, but it's just blocks and blocks and blocks. I mean, it's a enormous area, and I would venture to say you could not see it all in one day. But
Oh,
it is a happening place. This is boy, talking about the hustle and bustle. It's so much fun. This is one of the places that you will just really experience and dive deep into the culture of
mm,
Turkey. And I want to be sure and say how hospitable the people are. We love the people of Turkey. I thought they were so warm, super welcoming, very inviting. Most of them speak English. And the bazaar is one of the places that you'll go that you will experience them wanting you not to just come in your shop, but they want you to sit down and have some Turkish tea with them. And that's just very customary. They're not trying to just smooze you or anything like that. They're just really welcoming you. They want to get to know you. And
mm.
that's part of the fun of the entire experience to me is going and having tea with the shopkeepers. But the bazaar has a little bit of everything. One part of it is this entire huge spice market, but you can get
Ooh.
jewelry there. I know a friend of mine, she was buying some beautiful jewelry, very high end, nice stuff, shoes, all the silk stuff. So we were focusing on silk scarves when I was there. That's what I was buying for souvenirs for our daughters and family because not only are they beautiful and unique, but they don't take up much room in your suitcase.
I was gonna say that's a smart buy. You know what I mean?
Uh,
That's smart
but
on how to do it. Yeah.
one of the things, I mean, I could have filled up a trunk with all the treasures that they have at the bazaar for sure. But one of the things that is expected, and especially with Westerners, know that they expect you to haggle with them. I mean,
Oh,
they want
cool.
to, yeah. It's a little uncomfortable, I think, for most Americans because we don't do that here.
Oh,
But you've got to kinda have a game plan in your head, and when you go somewhere, know what you're gonna spend and what you're not gonna spend because they're gonna it's
they'll
almost a
get you.
game, they're gonna kinda play with you, and you just gotta stick to your guns there and let them, "Nope, nope, this is it," and, I mean, I was really surprised at these silk scarves. I mean, I got them down I mean, I think they were, like, starting at $300 basically, and, I think I ended up getting them for about $75 each. But they take your credit cards, American money. They're very accommodating, and it's just a lovely place to go. A lot of fun. You will have adventures at the Grand Bazaar, I promise you. And it was just something that we loved, and I highly recommend.
I think that's fun, and that's part of why the tea is there to slow down the process, so it's not an in and out, so that they can, work their magic.
Right.
It's part of that, and it is part of the back and forth and understanding value too, and it's there's a lot of countries are like that, and I know my friend was in the import business, and she said, half of her time in different countries, Turkey, India, places like that. She was buying rugs. She said you would spend the entire day in a rug shop drinking tea, laughing and bargaining, but it's like a fun thing to do. And you have to do it. Otherwise you're walking out with top dollar and they win. And it's not fun for them either. They want to have that, like you're saying. So it's really part of it. So I'm glad you brought that up so people can be aware. Now, what about this dinner cruise? Because I want to talk about this, like dinner cruise, and what was the food like? Because you're also, I know you've got to have had wonderful, restaurants as well. That's the
Yes.
thing about the market. I would want to go taste all the spices and like what are they eating over there? So let's start with the dinner cruise. What was that like?
That is what we did our second night there. And again, something I highly recommend. Their dinner cruise was probably a step up from any dinner cruise I've done before. So much of what's in Istanbul is very, very first class. I was explaining that to a friend yesterday, excuse me. And that's something I was just almost a little bit surprised about. They can be very formal and just very upscale on many levels, which was a nice surprise. They're very classy people and beautiful people. I think they're just very attractive people, and of course with their warm personalities. But the cruise ship that we went on for our dinner cruise, we picked it just because we wanted to be able to see Istanbul at night from the waterfront, and just the sights alone made the cruise worth it because seeing Istanbul from a distance, illuminated with all those mosques and beautiful historic buildings, especially so many are on the waterfront, many palaces. It's just spectacular. It's magical. And our dinner was just delicious. I can't tell you exactly what we had on that cruise, but I can tell you what, it was all so good. Ronnie and I were both so impressed. And then we just had this fantastic group of entertainers that came, and we had a really close-up table to the stage area, and that was so much fun. Especially loved the belly dancing and then
Mm.
the whirling dervishes. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. And
So
tell
that
people a
was
little bit about that because that's an art, man.
Yes, yeah, it is the first time I'd ever seen that. I've seen it like, on a documentary or something, but they both it's basically kind of a religious dance where they go into a almost like a meditative trance.
Yeah,
And then watching them, you kind of, experience the same thing, I guess. But how they twirl around and whirl around like that and don't fall on their back, I do not know. I mean, that's some talent right there. But, that is, just a huge tradition in Turkey, a type of dancing, and I was so excited to get to see that and witness that in person. The belly dancing too is just always entertaining, to say
it's
the least.
beautiful.
So that was fun, we enjoyed it.
Yeah, the whirling dervish thing, you said it's a trance, and it is like energetic. Like there's that energy that happens. Like for musicians, performing live has got more energy than recording in a studio because of the audience. And so it's kind of this connective energy flow that happens between the dancers, like in this mode, and it's kind of like how gospel music can transport you.
Yeah,
It's
right,
like giving their soul, in this
exactly.
kind of dance.
Blues music definitely takes you there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to it's like when you were in Quebec City and got to see the Tuvan throat singers, and
Uh-huh.
understand that. And that's it's like they're channeling something. It's
Right,
like a
right.
different entity is part of that. So to me, that's amazing. I've watched that with a Native American flute player, and he took his hands off the flute at one point, like one off of the other, and didn't miss anything. And like every time we saw him perform, the name is Everin Ozan. Every time we saw him perform, the lights would go out. And I'm like, there's something up with this kid. Because he started when he was 9 years old and he was National Geographic Kids and all of that. And it blew my mind because everywhere he went, the lights went out or flickered or did something weird.
Mm, that's
So I think there's like a thing that happens I can't explain. But now
right.
what about the food? What is the food like in the restaurants? And is when you talk about all this opulence, and is the
Yeah.
food like that there?
The food is, and they use a lot of pomegranates. They're
Hmm.
everywhere.
Good for you.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've never seen so many pomegranates in my life. So, which I love, and I love pomegranate juice. That's one thing that stands out in my mind. Also, artichokes and eggplants are both really, really popular, I guess, grow well over there. And the one thing I was kind of surprised at were potatoes. The biggest potatoes. I think they could rival Idaho at any point. We had a lunch with these potatoes.
Mm.
Thing. I really don't want to get off on it, but anyway, it just are these giant potatoes, and they put all kind of toppings and stuff on it. Was not my favorite, I'll tell you that. But that is a thing. There are these gigantic potatoes that are, I mean, just maybe a little smaller than a football, and they're just enormous.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's out the soils, and
Yeah.
potatoes
Oh,
grow in
I
sandy
know.
soil.
That one was really surprising, but of course, I loved all the Turkish delights. Those are very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
popular. Of course, I brought home a lot of Turkish delights, and those come in all form and fashions, and they're everywhere. And I feel like there are stores that sell those, their displays and their baklava were just some of the most beautiful displays. I loved window shopping at all the Turkish delights and baklavas and stuff like that. It was beautiful and delicious. Yeah, that's just seems like
It's
that.
a very Mediterranean cuisine, but at the same time, here's your giant potato. It's like, which is completely opposite, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's fascinating to me.
Yes. Now we ate, of course, a lot of great fish as
Oh,
well. Loved the fish there, and just the hummus. Oh my goodness, was just the best ever. But,
mm.
yeah, and then we had a couple of restaurants that I loved. My 2 favorite, one is called 29, and it sits up on a hillside that overlooks the Bosphorus, which is beautiful, and it has this
Oh, wow.
enormous terrace. When we were there, it was a little bit too cold for dining on the terrace, but typically they have dining service on the terrace, but this is a Michelin restaurant, and so it's very top notch, incredible, wine selection, and the chef there is just so brilliant. And we got to meet with him, and he is just a master of what he does. The restaurant itself could not have been more beautiful. And I did not realize it, but I think later at night, I think that place maybe on a lower level has a really hot nightclub where people go dancing. I learned from a Turkish friend here in Dallas told me that. But so 29 is one to remember. And then my other restaurant that I loved was one that Ron just found, and bless his heart, this was after he had had his hair transplant, and it was going to be our last night in Istanbul. But I was like, I wanted to go out one last night. I had been in Southwest Turkey, and while he had his hair transplant, I think I told you on the last podcast. So
Yeah.
I just returned, and we had one last night there. We had his bandages taken off, and we had gone to the hospital that day, and of course, he was doing really well. Probably wasn't feeling his very best, but he soldiered on, and he took me out to this incredible restaurant called Navette. And this is like in one of the older sections of Istanbul, not too far from where I had the photo shoot area that has the Galata Tower, which is one of their like iconic structures there that use a lot in their like logos and stuff is the Galata Tower. So Navette, when he said, "Oh, Terry, I think you might like this," just because he thought the interior was real pretty, and the interior is phenomenal. I found out this Italian architect designed it all, and I can't even begin to describe it. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It's a small, intimate restaurant. It's on top of a hotel, so it's about 4 or 5 stories up. I can't remember. We went up the elevator. I can't remember how far we went up, but anyway, it just has these amazing views of the city, and the food was excellent. The service was excellent. The decor was some of the most unique and beautiful I've ever seen. And then you can go to a rooftop area that is also fantastic. And then they have
Nice.
really nice live music there. Could not have been a more perfect dining experience for our last evening in Istanbul.
Sounds a little romantic there.
It was very romantic, and, yes, I would definitely go back there. So Navette and 29, put those 2 on your
Mm.
list when you go to Istanbul.
Well, now, really important is lodging, where, I think lodging, is part of the experience when you pick the right places. And
Yes.
you went to the Conrad Hilton. You know that Nancy and I went to the very first Hilton Hotel. It's in a tiny town in Texas, Terry.
Oh,
Here,
yes. I think I have
Chris,
heard this.
yes.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I did know that. Yes, I
Where
haven't.
is it? Frisco? Yeah, I think it's Cisco, not Frisco.
But
It's where
yeah,
the
I
Santa
like that little
Claus
town.
robbery, the Christmas bank robbery or Santa Claus bank robbery happened. So we
Yeah,
went there.
that's a
Yeah.
very western little town there.
Yeah,
But
tiny little town, and we're looking for the bank that got robbed back in the day. And I mean, this was an incredible heist that happened. And we're going to have to cover this story for Christmas this year because why not have a bank robbery story for the holiday season? But we parked the car, and it's where the Chamber of Commerce is, and they've got a statue of Conrad Hilton. And this is the very first Hilton hotel. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, who knew, right? And so
yeah,
now this small hotel, very Western kind of style, like this, it's kind of reminiscent. And I think he started building them kind of to rival the Harvey houses. So I think there's some tie there with history. I don't have the plaque in front of me, but I find this amazing when you go from this tiny Western town in Texas to the Conrad Hilton. This is night and day, isn't it?
yeah. Now, yeah. I mean, Hilton. What a global iconic success story, for hotels. And Hiltons are so nice across the board, and we've stayed in them across the globe. But the Conrad Hilton is now, one of their higher end Hilton hotels, and it does not disappoint. The one in Istanbul is beautiful. We were very pleased and had the most gorgeous views of the Bosphorus. We were up on a hillside and could see the city and down to the Bosphorus. And of course, they have a rooftop restaurant there as well. But it's just stunning. It has exceptional amenities and indoor, outdoor pools, tennis club. It had everything, and they were so very accommodating. So I love staying there. But if I were to go back, I might would stay
Oh,
at
here
the
it
Para
comes.
Palace.
She's
Yes.
back to the palace. Oh, we are going to have to do a palace podcast. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well, this is actually a hotel, but and there are several that are hotels now, and so it's just like surreal to think, hey, I'm staying in what used to be a sultan's home, that type of thing. But yeah, the Para Palace, you may have heard about it because this is where Agatha Christie wrote the Murder on the Orient Express
No
and
way.
kind of put it on the map. And so now, in the hotel the room number 411 carries her name. That's the Agatha Christie room. So it's a really cool place. It's just a fame leader, like in um, hotels, because it established a electric lift. They had the first elevator of its time in that whole area for the longest time. So, and it still operates. You still
Oh.
can go up, and it's beautiful. It's very, very, very ornate, and it's kind of open.
Mm.
It's glass, but you can see all the way around. It kind of goes up through the center of the staircase there. It has like a lot of history there. The president Ataturk, he loved going there, so he was a guest. And then you also had like Queen Elizabeth, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Greta Garbo, Alfred Hitchcock,
Oh,
Jack
well, there we go.
Kennedy, all
Oh,
these
well,
people.
better.
Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah.
I just crack up at all the places I go and it'd say, and Ernest Hemingway was a guest
Yeah.
here. I mean, he was everywhere.
And he hung out in the bar. Just gonna
Yes,
say.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he said he was a resident there, after World War One, when he was actually a reporter. So,
Oh,
yeah, it
wow.
was, kinda interesting, but, we went there for Sunday brunch.
Mm.
And oh my goodness, was that something else? It's just the place, again, opulent is the word that comes to mind. It just could not be more beautiful. This is definitely a place to put on your list to go see, even if you're not a guest there. So it's in a very old section of Istanbul as well, but just very, very iconic hotel. And
Awesome.
I
Oh.
just think of it just like massive chandeliers, and they had, someone playing at a grand piano, and the food just went on and on and on. It was just fantastic. I have
Mm.
lots of food pictures from there. But
Oh, wow.
afterwards, we walked down the hill down to the Galala Port promenade. And that is kind of a more modern area of Istanbul. We just wanted to kind of check it out. This is what we did on our very first evening there. And that Galala Port is so nice. It's very modern. And it is like to even get in it too, you kind of go through security. So it's like it's ultra safe. Even though I have to say Istanbul, I feel like it's very safe. Just FYI for anybody that's wondering. We thought so. I thought it was a lot safer
That's important to bring up because
cities
there's
that I've been to. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I have a friend whose daughter wants to go, and we had this group, friend chat. And I'm like, cool, I know a lot of travel writers going there, and one friend going, I don't know if it's safe for you girls to go there. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know this person, and everyone seems to say that people are so friendly, and there's a lot of cats if you like cats, and
Oh,
the food
yeah.
is good, and the history. And her daughter is very smart, one of those overachievers that you go, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't compete with you in school kind of person, and she's like this, she's a gorgeous, girl, and just the A student and she's so into history. And I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, go for it. And, take your mom, go like a mother-daughter adventure in Turkey, in Istanbul. And, so I think that's important to note because I think people are like, oh, I don't know. And I don't think we've heard that much about traveling to Turkey for the last 5 to 10 years as we're hearing about it over the last 2 to 3 years. So I think it's good to point out to people about the safety. And I also, before you go, wanted to give a shout out to, you won like a big photography contest for Turkey, right? And I remember you flew, was it DC or New York City that suddenly you're on a
Well, thank you. I actually had kind of forgotten that.
forgetting what you're up to, because I remember we had something scheduled and you're like, girl, I won this. And I'm like, you go, girl.
Yeah, this was a shocker for sure. Yes, the tourism ministry of Turkey had a photo contest for a lot of for the travel writers that were there. We were there for the Society of American Travel Writers conference. And so they wanted to kind of see Turkey through our eyes, which I thought was a great idea. And that's exactly what we did. So I submitted uh, a lot of photos. I think I submitted 10 and 8 of mine won. I was like so shocked. And it was so much fun. We went to New York City where they had all of the photos that won on display at the Turkish minister's home. And that was just such a treat getting to go to that. And they were all on display and there was, all these people there. That was really a cool experience. And then afterwards, right across the street from the Turkish embassy, there is the United Nations. And this was in April. So they moved all of our photographs because they had them blown up really big and on easels. They moved them over to the United Nations. And I think they were on display there in the lobby for the rest of the month. That's what they told us. So I didn't
Wow.
actually get to see that, but that was pretty exciting. I just never expected anything like that. But my goodness, Turkey had so many fantastic thousands and thousands of photo ops. I think my poor little phone just about blew up and my camera. I took a lot of pictures when I was over there. It was just so many great photo opportunities for sure.
Well, awesome, Terri. We can't wait for next week. I was going to say next month. I'm like, hey, everybody, it's every Tuesday. We're here with Terri Guthrie, and keep up with travel with Terri.net. She's on Instagram, also Facebook. Find her there on LinkedIn. And of course, tune in for next week and we'll find out where we're going. And maybe we'll go to a palace. Who knows? But Terri, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Travel with Terri podcast. You can follow Terri's adventures at travelwithterri.net. And that's Terri with an I, not a Y. Follow us here at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels!